He'd turned down 17 women in 3 months. Each one offered something: warmth, food, companionship. And each time, Elijah Carter said no. The war had hollowed him out, left him with hands that shook and dreams that screamed. He'd decided years ago that broken men didn't deserve gentle things. Then she appeared at the well, the Navajo widow who didn't smile, didn't flirt, didn't pretend. She asked him one question, the kind that strips away all the lies. "You want a wife or just shelter?" No man had an answer for that, especially not a man who'd stopped believing he deserved either. But somehow, that brutal honesty changed everything. The November wind cut through the high desert like a blade, carrying red dust across the scattered hogans of the Navajo settlement near Tuba City. Elijah Carter arrived on a limping horse, his Confederate coat faded to the color of dried blood, his eyes carrying the kind of emptiness that made even the trading post owner look away. He'd been drifting for 3 years since Shiloh. The war had ended, but something in him hadn't made it home. The settlement existed in an uneasy truce. Navajo families who'd avoided the long walk, a handful of traders, and occasional drifters like him looking for work that didn't require explaining the past. Elijah found labor repairing a rancher's fence line on the settlement's edge, and that's when the women started. First came Sarah, the trader's daughter, with fresh bread and hopeful eyes. He thanked her, handed back the bread, and walked away. Then Mary, a widow from Kansas, who offered to mend his torn shirt. He declined, sewing it himself with clumsy stitches that night. "You afraid of women, Carter?" the rancher asked, watching another rejection. "No, sir," Elijah replied, hammering another post. "Just don't have anything to give them." The rancher spat tobacco juice. "Man's got to eat something besides jerky and guilt." But Elijah kept saying no. To every smile, every invitation, every gentle attempt to pull him back into the world of the living, he'd become good at no. It was easier than explaining the dreams, the way his hands shook when a woman touched him, the certainty that anyone who got close would eventually see what he'd become in Tennessee. He preferred the company of damaged fence posts and the indifferent desert sky. Claire had been watching him for 2 weeks before she spoke. The other women called her Azza-Yazi, little woman, though at 31 she was neither little nor a girl. Her husband had died 18 months ago from the coughing sickness that swept through after the harsh winter of 71. She lived alone in a hogan on the settlement's eastern edge, weaving rugs that traders paid decent money for, speaking when necessary and silent the rest of the time. She understood men who said no to the world. One evening, as Elijah filled his canteen at the communal well, she appeared beside him. Not smiling, not hopeful, just watching with dark eyes that had seen their own share of darkness. "You're the one who turns down every woman," she said in English, her accent careful and precise, learned from missionary teachers years ago. "Yes, ma'am." "Why?" Elijah straightened, surprised by the directness. Most women approached with sweetness, with strategy. This one spoke like she was identifying a type of weather. "Don't have anything to offer them," he said. "Sarah brought you bread. You didn't need to offer anything back." Would have been false pretenses. Claire studied him the way she studied wool, before weaving, assessing quality, seeing the flaws, deciding if the material had enough strength for the work ahead. "You're broken," she said finally. Not a question, a statement. "Yes, ma'am. So am I." The wind kicked up dust between them. Somewhere a dog barked. Elijah found himself unable to look away from this woman who spoke truth like it was water, necessary and plain. "My hogan has a strong roof," she continued. "Winter's coming. You're living in that lean-to by the ranch that won't survive December snow. I'll manage. Will you?" She tilted her head. "You want a wife, or just shelter?" The question hit him like a physical blow, not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. She wasn't offering love or healing or redemption. She was offering survival, with the acknowledgement that both of them were just trying to make it through winter. "I don't know," Elijah heard himself say. "Neither do I," Claire replied. "But I'm tired of pretending I'm whole, and you look tired of pretending too." She walked away before he could answer, leaving him standing at the well with the echo of the first real question anyone had asked him since the war. 3 days passed before Elijah knocked on the wooden frame of her Hogan's entrance. Claire pulled back the blanket that served as a door. "You decided." "Shelter," he said quietly. "That's all I can promise. Shelter and work. I can repair things, hunt, keep the woods stocked, but I can't—" He stopped, throat tight. "I'm not asking you to be unbroken," she said. "Just asking if you'll help me survive winter and let me help you survive it too." They married 3 days later in a brief ceremony witnessed by the trading post owner and an elderly Navajo man who sang a traditional blessing neither of them fully understood. No kiss, no celebration, just two damaged people making a practical choice that felt more honest than any promise of love. Elijah moved his few possessions into the Hogan that evening. Claire had set up a separate sleeping area for him, 2 bedrolls on opposite sides of the fire pit, no expectations, no pretense. "You have nightmares?" she asked as darkness fell. "Yes, I do too, about the coughing, watching him drown in his own lungs while I could do nothing." She poked the fire. "You can wake me if you need to. I won't judge." That first week was strange and careful. They moved around each other like wounded animals, respectful, distant, but aware. Elijah repaired the Hogan's roof, reinforced the sheep pen, and brought back a deer he'd tracked for 2 days. Claire cooked, wove her rugs, and taught him basic Navajo words when he asked. They didn't touch, barely spoke some days. But every evening, as they sat by the fire, there was a lessening of tension in Elijah's shoulders. And Claire found herself sleeping through the night for the first time since her husband's death. The arrangement was working. That scared them both. The nightmare came on a December night when the temperature dropped below freezing. Elijah woke gasping, certain he was back in Tennessee, surrounded by bodies, the smell of gunpowder and blood choking him. He stumbled outside into the snow, shaking, his breath coming in ragged bursts. Claire found him 20 minutes later, kneeling in the snow in just his union suit, ice forming in his beard. "Elijah," her voice was calm, firm. "Come back inside. I can't, the blood, I can still smell—" "There's no blood, just snow, just cold, just you and me." She knelt beside him, not touching, but close enough that he could hear her breathing. "You're in Arizona. It's December 1873. The war is over." "I killed a boy," he whispered. "Couldn't have been more than 15. He was crying for his mother and I held my husband's hand while he died," Claire said quietly. "Told him it would be okay, even though I knew he'd be dead by morning. I lied to a dying man because the truth was too terrible." Elijah's eyes focused on her face. "How do you live with it?" "Badly," she admitted. "Most days badly. But some days I weave a rug and it's beautiful. Some days I feed the sheep and they're warm. Some days I sit by a fire with someone who understands that broken doesn't mean finished." She extended her hand, not pulling, just offering. Elijah stared at her hand for a long moment. Then slowly he took it. Her fingers were calloused from weaving, strong and steady. She helped him stand, led him back inside, wrapped him in a blanket by the fire. They sat in silence as dawn approached, their hands still touching. "I think," Elijah said finally, "I stopped wanting just shelter about a week ago." Claire's fingers tightened on his. "I stopped wanting just help about the same time. What do we do now?" "I don't know," she said, "but maybe we figure it out together." For the first time in 3 years, Elijah felt something other than numbness. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was possibility. Spring came slowly to the high desert. By March, the Hogan had changed. Elijah's bedroll had migrated closer to Claire's, not from passion, but from cold nights when sharing warmth made sense, then from comfort, then from choice. They held each other through nightmares now, both of them taking turns being strong when the other couldn't be. The settlement noticed. The trader's wife commented that Claire smiled more. The rancher mentioned that Elijah had stopped looking like a ghost. One evening, as they prepared dinner, Claire asked the question again. "So, what was your answer? Wife or shelter?" Elijah looked at her. This woman who'd asked him the most honest question of his life, who'd seen him broken and stayed anyway, who'd taught him that healing wasn't about becoming unbroken, but about learning to live with the cracks. "Yes," he said, "that's not an answer. It is. Both. Neither. I don't know." He set down the pot he was carrying. "You asked me to choose between wife and shelter, like they were different things. But you're both, and you're neither. You're just Claire." The woman brave enough to ask the question no one else did. She studied him with those dark, knowing eyes. "You're getting better with words. You're a good teacher. And you're a terrible student." But she was smiling. That night, for the first time, Elijah kissed her. It wasn't the passionate kiss of storybooks. It was careful, tentative, the kiss of two people who'd forgotten how to be gentle with themselves, learning how to be gentle with each other. When they pulled apart, Claire rested her forehead against his. "We're still broken," she whispered. "I know. We might always be a little broken. I know that too. But maybe," she said, "broken together is better than whole and alone." Elijah wrapped his arms around her, this woman who'd saved him by offering nothing but truth and time. Maybe it is. Outside, the desert wind blew warm for the first time in months. The sheep made soft sounds in their pen, and inside the hogan, two people who'd been alone with their trauma discovered what they'd both needed all along. Not someone to fix them, but someone willing to sit in the darkness until dawn came. The question had been answered, not with words, but with choice. Not with promises of forever, but with the quiet decision to face tomorrow together, and for two broken souls learning to be whole again. That was enough.